Hi, everybody. Amanda Hoffmeyer here again with our next HubSpot training. Today, we're going to talk about list segmentation, and I'm going to show you some tutorials of exactly how to do it. First of all, let's talk about why is list segmentation important. We don't want to send irrelevant messages to folks, so that's the most important reason. Lists can be used to leverage smart rules, which we covered in a previous episode, which you can find on our website. So lists will enable you to really custom tailor messages to specific segments of your audience. Lists can also be used to enroll people in workflows. Lists can be used to perform task management work with your team, to do automations. Lists are kind of like one of the core foundational building blocks in HubSpot that allow you to do all kinds of work throughout the platform. So they're very, very critical. And there are two types of lists. We'll be covering both of them today. One are static lists and the other are dynamic lists. So let's dive right in. Okay, so to get to lists, when you go into HubSpot, you're going to click on contacts, and then you're going to go ahead and click on this button here that says lists. To create one, we're going to click on this orange button at the top right here that says create list. So the first thing we have to decide is, do we want to make a list based on contacts, based on companies, or based on deals? If it's anybody that we're going to be trying to email to, we're going to want to go ahead and create a contact-based list. Since that's the focus of this particular training, that's what we're going to do. And then we have the option to make an active list or a static list. So the application for a static list is sometimes, for example, your sales team or your internal organization people. A static list is something where you're going to manually assign people into it. Or the other application is for sort of a one-time use list, like if you get a list from a trade show or a webinar, something that is very event-based where you might upload that list. A static list is going to be where that information is stored. Active lists are really where we can leverage the power of HubSpot. So that's what we're really going to spend some time on today. If you are doing one of those one-time list uploads, like I mentioned, you can actually create a static list at the same time that you do your data upload. So it'll walk you through that in the step-by-step process, and it'll ask you, do you want to make a list out of these contacts? Go ahead and say yes, give it a name, and it's going to drop those folks into a static list. Okay, so for active lists, this allows us to access all of the filters that are available to us in HubSpot. So this is really, really powerful tool. I'm going to talk about some of the most common ones here, just to get your wheels kind of turning. The first one is we regularly like to send retarget emails to people who didn't open or potentially click on our first email. So if you start typing marketing emails, you can go ahead, see that that's an option. If we wanted to say, okay, anybody who didn't open our newsletter, we want to send them a retarget with a new subject line. So if we're going to say, hey, we want to pull in anybody from this who received the email, but they didn't click on a link, we would click that. If we want to send it to anybody who was sent the email, but they didn't open, we can click this. Just keep in mind that if we select email was delivered to contact, but they didn't open it, the changes with iOS will affect this. So this will not be perfect. But if you do want to use that the email was sent to the contact, but they didn't click on a link, that is definitely a surefire way to be reaching folks who didn't physically engage and click. Okay, so that's one way to use these for sort of that one-time retarget. We're just going to delete this one. I'll show you some other things we can do here. The other thing we can do is we can make active lists based on contact properties. So this is particularly useful with things like life cycle stage. There it is, life cycle stage. So for example, if we wanted to create a list of customers, we could go ahead and click customer, and that's going to create a list that will always be up to date with anybody who is currently in a customer lifecycle stage. Same thing with lead, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, etc. Typically, we like to make an active list for each of these different areas so that we can very quickly target or suppress folks that lie in each of these life cycle stages. The other thing we can do is we can segment based on any contact property. So, for example, if your target audience is segmented by job titles, if you have your job titles in there as a dropdown, you can go ahead and use job title to segment so that you're only targeting maybe decision makers, maybe influencers with a specific message. And sort of the power here too is that we can combine these filters. So for example, if we wanted to do the life cycle stage, if I could spell that right, if we wanted to do the life cycle stage of customer, and then we also wanted to say, but we only want to talk to customers who, became a lead on a specific date. We only want to talk to customers with a certain job function or job title. We can go ahead and add as many of these filters as we want to create a super, super customized list here. So that's kind of very at a high level, the value of list segmentation and how you do it. What you will notice in that tutorial is that making these active lists is much, much easier if our data is situated in a drop-down situation. Yes, you can absolutely use free fields to do that list segmentation, but you're going to be much better off if you have things such as job function, job title, really key pieces of data that you use to segment your audience. You want to go ahead and put those on drop downs because it's going to make everything much cleaner for you. One thing that I didn't mention that I will also show you actually is that we can make lists based on social media interactions. So what that means is, say we do a lead generation campaign on Facebook, Instagram, where we have a lead gen form, we can actually utilize these active lists to pull people into lists based on which ad they converted on. So let's take just a quick look at that. Okay, so for example, we ran a little social media ad to try to get folks to opt into our weekly text message of marketing tips called the Brick Buzz. So in order to segment all the folks who engage with that, what we can do is we can start typing the word ads, and we have the option here for ads interactions. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Facebook campaign name, and I'm going to paste it in exactly as it appeared in Facebook. And this is going to pull a list of all the folks who opted into our ad. So this is great because maybe I want to enroll these guys in a sequence to give them a little bit more information, give them some marketing tips, since we know that that's something that they're into. And I will just kind of quickly roll through other filters so that you guys can get a sense of everything that's in here. So we already kind of talked about contact properties, that any property you have on a contact level, we can create a list from, and we can mix and match those any way you like to get as narrow as you want to get. We can also actually make dynamic lists from other lists. So for example, maybe you had one of those retarget lists from a webinar that you say, okay, we're going to retarget these people with this, but maybe we want to actually refine that further by job title. You could say, if they're a member of this list and they have this job title, then drop them in this list. So the power of this is we can get really, really mega granular just depending on what you're looking for. We can also create active lists based on workflow enrollments. So maybe we have like 5 workflows that are going on that folks are enrolled in, and we want to put them into a list so we can actually use it as a suppression list. This is how we would do that. I already showed you ads interactions. We can leverage behavioral events. So they visited this website page, that website page. We can use calls to action. Custom behavioral events, you can create email subscriptions. So if you want to say, hey, anybody who is subscribed to the Brick Buzz, or anybody who is subscribed to both the Brick Buzz and product updates, we want to send those guys a really specific message, we can leverage it that way. Form submissions is a really, really common way that we use these dynamic lists. So if you're running a campaign, oftentimes we like to create a dynamic, an active list of people who have submitted the form. The purpose of that is if we're continuing to market that campaign, we don't want to keep marketing it to people who have already submitted the form. So oftentimes just think about these lists. They're as important to be using them for suppression lists as they are for inclusion lists. We already kind of looked at marketing emails. You can really segment based on any behavioral activity that took place on a marketing email that you sent them. Page views. And then if you do have other third-party apps integrated like we do, you can actually use those for list segmentation as well. So that is a very fast rundown. If you do have any detailed questions or there's specific things you'd like to see more of a deep dive tutorial on, please, please, please feel free to drop us an email or let us know in the comments. We are just making this stuff really to help you guys out. So we're very open to feedback, and thank you guys so much. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.